Inefficient preparation is like there's no plan, there's no ladder, we don't know what we're trying to do. Maybe we'll do three or four things. People will say that we're drifting or that we don't have a career plan. And the what it looks like is you don't know what you're doing. What it sometimes actually is that you have these diverse interests and skills and you're building them all up. And you will later on be able to combine them in some way. I'm Henry Oliver. I'm a writer. I write the literary substack called The Common Reader. I also write for places like the Financial Times, Liberties, and the New Statesman. I write about talent and sometimes, very occasionally, politics, architecture, cultural topics. And what am I known for online? Talking a lot about Shakespeare and late bloomers, I think.
Okay, okay. I've got your book here. The second
Very
act.
nice. Second
Very,
act.
very dog-eared.
Good.
I've underlined all
Yes.
of that just to prove
Fold
that I've
those
read it.
corners. That's
Yes,
right.
that's the one. That's the one. Don't be scared. Don't be
It's just
precious.
come out in paperback. It makes a wonderful present. That's it.
Yes,
Give
it
it to
does.
everyone
It
you know. Yeah.
does. Yep, yeah. Well, the first question that I wanted to ask you is also not trying to turn this into a therapy session for me because I consider myself a late bloomer and I consider this podcast a very elaborate way of figuring out my late blooming lane.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, why are we, if I can put myself in that category, why are we late bloomers? Why are we weird?
I used that word because I wanted to try and emphasize that even though late blooming is a normal thing and it happens to a lot of people, and it seems to be a lot of people think something must have happened to make you a late bloomer. Whereas I'm trying to get across the point that late blooming is a natural thing. There are just lots of people who are like this. But almost by definition, they may therefore exhibit behaviors, qualities, traits that are less mainstream or less the quote unquote normal path. Um, and that's almost by definition, right? But when you look at some of the personal traits that late bloomers exhibit, like not just persistence or obsessiveness, but like I think they're very earnest, right? I think late bloomers have real earnestness about their projects and about their interests and about the decisions they make. So if you think about Ray Kroc, who became the McDonald's founder, not founder as such, it's a whole contested area, but the guy who turned McDonald's into a global business. He didn't start that until he was about 56, 57, I think. And his friends were always saying, oh, Ray's got another one of his business ideas. And he took it really seriously, like way past the point when everyone else took him seriously. And that kind of earnestness, I think, can often be seen as a bit weird. And it's not antisocial, but you're not optimizing for like being fun at parties necessarily. You need to find your group, you need to find your people if you're like that, right? Um, so that was that's the sort of broad outlines of why they're weird. I don't mean to say that in an unkind way. I take it as a great compliment.
Yes, 100%. 100%. There's something about when you get to a certain age where you don't care too much about what people think. When you're younger, there's the peer pressure and all of that. So you kind of get pushed into a lane that perhaps isn't yours. Whereas when you get a little bit older, you just tired of caring about what other people think.
I think there's truth in that. A lot of late bloomers will also do things quietly. So everyone's obliged to conform, to care what other people think in some way, right? People go to the office, they have neighbors. There's a certain amount of having to care what people think
Mm.
that you're obliged to undergo. But a lot of late bloomers they'll do that like up front, and then they'll sort of quietly get on with whatever it is they're interested in the background. They keep their own counsel, if you like. And here's a really good example of that is Dwight Eisenhower, who became the American president. When he was a young soldier in the army, he was really obsessed with tanks. And the army hierarchy was saying to him, tanks aren't the future. Forget all this tank stuff, you know? And eventually he was told, if you don't stop with the tanks, you will be disciplined, like this will be a problem for your career. So he did. And he did conform, he did follow the rules. And his mentor said, come on, it's time to shut up. I'm with you on the tanks, but it's time to shut up. But he maintained the interest in his own mind. And when the Second World War came around, obviously tanks were hugely important. And Eisenhower, there were other issues as well, but Eisenhower was well positioned on that. So he kept that balance. He was
Mm.
outwardly conformist, but inwardly
Mm.
knew what he thought, wasn't going to sort of, in the depths of his mind, wasn't going to change
Mm-hmm.
those ideas. Now that's a difficult thing to maintain sometimes, but I think that's often true for late bloomers as well.
Yeah. I have so this idea of kind of working in private and also showing your work to the world, it kind of led me to an idea of like blooming in the age of algorithm. So, the idea of, trying to find your tribe, trying to find your
Mm-hmm.
people by showing off your work or publicizing your work or, talking about the things that interest you. And, you know, the whole kind of social media space lends itself to huge levels of kind of conformity and social pressure. Have you, in your kind of studying, and researching, the second act, have you? What's your stance with regard to sharing your work publicly in order to attract your tribe and protecting yourself from potential criticism or, you know, conforming that is not helpful?
I don't get that much criticism because I don't think I'm writing about anything very controversial. Um, the criticism I do get, on the whole, I don't mind at all. I just don't, I don't care. If it's good criticism, like if they've made a good point, if they've given some new evidence, whatever, something like that, that's great. Like, okay, good. It's good to know that. Um, People just, I don't know. People don't get at me online. I don't think I'm worth the trouble. I don't know what it is. But I'm fine with it. I have a great on Substack. I think I have one of the best audiences. They're very well informed. They leave good comments. They send very useful emails to me. Like I do really well. Um, so I kind of dispute the question. I think the loud people on social media are like what you're describing. But I think there are lots and lots of parts of social media which obviously by definition are like less visible and on Substack increasingly are paywalled, which I do think makes a difference. Very few people are going to pay in order to be a troll. um, there are lots of these places where everything's kind of going well. And that means that you can find your tribe, as you say, and you can make these connections. And I think it's a good thing. Whether it is the right thing for everyone to do right now, I don't know. And I want to emphasize again that a lot of people work like they keep doing their thing in private for a long time. I don't think I blogged until I was like in my mid 30s, really. So I just don't know what the right answer is for everyone.
There's maybe more of a case of like, choose your platform wisely. Certain social media platforms will engage with some ideas, and certain social media platforms will be
For sure.
highly critical just for the highly
Yes.
critical sake.
But also, like, it depends what you want to do. I can't do anything on Instagram.
Mm.
That's just not, that's not going to work.
Hmm. Hmm.
You've got, there's that kind of thing. Some people find Twitter completely unbearable.
Mm.
So there are those sorts of issues to consider. I would just say pay some attention to like whether you want to do this now
Mm.
or whether you want to keep preparing yourself, I guess.
Okay. Okay. Um,
Have you seen that film, Young Mr. Lincoln?
no.
John Ford. classic American. I only just saw it. Obviously it's a good film because like everyone loves Abraham Lincoln,
Mm.
America, whatever.
American Greatest President. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, all that. But it's actually a very good film about how a talent can nurture itself in a small place. Because okay, he's in Springfield, Illinois, but he starts in this small town, and it's the 1830s. Like it's not huge at that point. Um, and it focuses on this small, on the well, a very large case of importance to the people in the town, but a court case in this small place. And I actually think that film is a really good example of how I don't know how historically accurate it is. I think it's pretty accurate, but it's a good example of how you can just be in a backwoods, and you need a few breaks, and you need to get like you need to go from the actual woods to the town, and you need a few books and so forth. But you can develop yourself there and you can just keep doing that in a quiet way for a long time. And that might be a better answer than like Abraham Lincoln goes to Washington age 20 or whatever, which probably would not have been a good idea. And I think people should give some consideration to that. Everyone wants to go to DC or the equivalent thing, right? When you get there, you might still have to just sit quietly in your own little backwood in the big city and do it anyway.
I have a sporting analogy. So I'm I'm into MMA, and the UFC. Um,
This means nothing to me.
Yeah, I know. Well, I it means nothing to a lot of people, but those
Okay.
people that are into mixed martial arts and UFC,
Oh, okay. Mixed martial
yes,
arts.
mixed martial
Okay.
arts.
Okay.
Um, so like the analogy that I have is like you can get a young fighter, somebody that has, natural natural attributes for fighting, and you can test that fighter through sparring,
Mm-hmm.
which is kind of like the usual course of things. But sparring could potentially lead them to injury, could
Yeah.
potentially lead to too much pressure at too young an age. Um, and rather than sparring, perhaps they should have shadow boxed a bit more, which is less impact, less
Mm-hmm.
actual,
Mm-hmm.
fighting time, which would have allowed them to develop their fight IQ.
Yeah.
So sometimes I think, oh, there's a whole heap of fighters
Yeah.
that never made it because they were put under too much pressure at too
Yeah.
young an age,
Yeah.
and had they been left to kind of develop, they could be the next big thing in MMA, mixed martial arts. But unfortunately, they were pushed too soon.
I think that's a great analogy. Yeah. The all the great English poets of the 16th century had the same thing. When our children go to school, my kids don't go to school, but um, everyone has to do creative writing in school now, and everyone's supposed to be able to write poems and stories. And if children want to do that, I'm not like, of course, go ahead. But when like Shakespeare went to school, he was given exercises to do, and he learned how to write different sorts of poems, and he would look at Latin poems, and you know what I mean. Like it was more like the shadow boxing that you're describing. And I think that's true in a lot of cases. Like learn the nuts and bolts. Really, just understand how this works, what this is, before you do it yourself. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, you've referenced, and through the book you reference a lot of kind of historical figures, and I can see that there's a passion there for biography and politics as well. um where would you put Second Act, the book, in bookstores? What section would it be in?
I don't know. Business and self help seem to be the places it
Mm,
goes.
mm, mm.
I don't think of it as a business book as such, but I think that's a good choice. Yeah.
Yeah, business. Okay. um because that leads me to the next question is, like, how do you describe inefficient preparation to someone?
Efficient preparation is like you have a career path, and it's not exactly up one rung every year on the ladder, but that kind of thing.
Mhm.
So you know what you need to do, and you make your plan and you do you do the right exams, you go to the right places, you get the internship, right? And every year you build it up one by one, and then you get to the whatever, you become the senior director of advisory, whatever. Inefficient preparation is like there's no plan, there's no ladder, we don't know what we're trying to do. Maybe we'll do three or four things. People will say that we're drifting or that we don't have a career plan. And the what it looks like is you don't know what you're doing. What it sometimes actually is that you have these diverse interests and skills and you're building them all up. And you will later on be able to combine them in some way. But it's not possible to know what that way is right now. So it looks inefficient, but it might be more efficient because there's no other way to do the thing you're doing. So one of the examples I give is Jerry Seinfeld writing jokes for Seinfeld, the sitcom. And I think it was the Harvard Business Review interviewed him and said, it's such hard work. You're there 12 hours a day and you throw everything out and you're really grinding it. Couldn't you like use McKinsey to make it more efficient? And he was like, who's McKinsey? And there's management consultants. And he said, okay, are they funny? And it's this wonderful line. The Harvard Business Review just says, no. And he says, well, they're no good. You can't make it efficient. There's no efficient way to be funny. You just have to grind it out like this. So a lot of these comedians, right, they're doing that thing I described. They do some gigs, they do some jobs. Like Larry David was driving a taxi at one point. But there's no other way. There's no efficient career path, I would say, to becoming a novelist. Right? There's obviously lots of steps and ladders and things, but you just actually have to grind it out for a long time. So that's the basic idea of inefficient preparation. And it's a bit like what you were saying with shadow boxing. Someone might look at that and say, well, why don't we get them sparring? That's more efficient. We'll get them like on the path. We'll get quicker. It's more efficient. But the deeper learning, like the stronger learning, is actually going to come from the slower process in a way. Now, maybe this all amounts to just do more, spend longer on it, start younger. I don't know, but it's about developing expertise in areas where it's not always obvious how you should do that.
Yeah. The reason why I asked about the, where you would put second act in the bookshop is because, like, when you think of efficient preparation,
Mm.
that seems to me more like of a self-help route, because it's do X, get Y, or do A, do B,
Yeah.
do C. Whereas inefficient preparation is not something that can be taught. It almost seems like it's something that you describe in hindsight. So if somebody's looking at, second act or, late blooming, it's not potentially something that you could, this is going to sound silly. It feels silly coming out of my mouth. It's not something you can teach. You
Yeah,
can't teach somebody to be a late bloomer.
correct.
Um, so yeah, so I was wondering, oh yeah, where would you put it in? Because is it self-help? Is it business? Is it biography?
Everyone wanted it to have like a 10-step plan, as you say, like this is the process for being a late bloomer, but it does not have that, and therefore maybe it is harder to put in the bookshop, and that would have been better if it had been more obvious. But I like it the way it is.
Brilliant. Yeah, yeah. Um, and also kind of connected to that is culture. I don't know if you've explored
Mm-hmm.
and looked into kind of different cultures, because like other countries have
Yeah,
a certain way of thinking of work life. I
yeah,
like
yeah.
I looked at my family background is Nigeria,
Mm-hmm.
and the stereotypical view is every Nigerian parent wants their child to be an engineer, a
Yeah,
doctor,
yeah.
or a lawyer. Most recently, it seems to be Afrobeat sensation. As long as you can,
Okay.
become like a very, very successful
Yeah,
musician, that seems
yeah,
to have been elevated now.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, have you looked into kind of like cultural levels of conformity and late blooming?
No, I didn't get into all of that, but I do have a section in the book where I talk about the need to get yourself into the right culture, and how if you are struggling to make a change, I think people forget that every culture we live in is like a bubble. And as soon as you leave, you'll be surprised by, oh wow, I can just be in a different bubble, and it all kind of works differently here. And now I can just be different. And how a lot of the time you can like struggle to make all these changes yourself, when maybe what you really need to do is like get a new job, go to a new country, whatever, hang out with a different group of people. Uh, like everyone knows this instinctively, the difference between the people you know who are like gloomy, everything is complaining, miserable, like, oh, and then the people who you see and they're like, I've done this, I've done this, I've done this, I've done this. Hanging out with those two people is just very different. If you had to spend all your time with one or the other of them, it would significantly change how you behaved. So I think you're absolutely right, but I don't have like good data for you about. Um, but I think some of it I didn't really get into it because I think some of it is very well covered elsewhere. Like there are a lot of brain drains in the world, and it's obvious why that happens. But like some of that's cultural. People will say, "Oh, it's economic and it's unfair." Some of it's cultural, um, for sure.
Yeah, many moons ago, I studied politics and sociology, and one of my papers
Hmm.
was on brain drain,
Oh, interesting.
and it was on the kind of Nigerian scientists going to America
Yeah,
to basically yeah, basically be amongst a pool of like-minded people who could,
yeah,
support them financially, but also, you know, emotionally. I guess it's very
yeah,
difficult to always be the lone, the lone shark in the sea, as it is. Um,
100%.
so with regard to, people listening to this are obviously going to be looking for tips and advice, and they're going to try and pull you to that 10-step plan. What in your kind of writing of second act, what tips and advice, using examples of some of these historical figures that you've covered, what are your favorites?
I want to just say to begin with, like, ignore all of this advice. It might be wrong for you. I don't like advice. I don't agree with it.
Caveat,
Most,
caveat,
yeah,
caveat.
oh no, truly, most advice is really bad. When we had children, someone said you should take advice only from the people whose children are like 3 months older than yours.
Okay. Yep.
And I ended up looking at the social science research about advice, and that turns out to be incredibly good advice. If your advice is like, I've done what you're doing, I have expertise in this area, and I kept it fresh, like I'm up to date, take the advice. Anything other than that, the advice is either not worth having or actually like bad for you. So like general life advice, I'm working in the same area as you, but it's kind of 10 years out of date. Like I'm so much older than you. This advice will all be like this will be wrong advice, and you're giving this bad information. So let me just give the heaviest caveat possible there. Um, I think the number one thing is networking. Everyone has to do more networking. This is more and more true as the world is changing with AI as well. Networking does not mean like finding contacts and trying to open doors and get opportunities and talking to salespeople and going to networking events. All the things that you're thinking where you're like, oh my God, I'm not doing any networking. Ah! I was once given this wonderful advice by a lady I know. She was a talented actress and she taught acting. I think she still teaches acting, in fact. And she said, networking's just telling everyone what you're doing. When you see someone, your neighbor, your postman, this guy on the podcast, your friend, right? You just tell them what you're doing. That's networking. It really is at that level, right? Go to the places you're invited to. Message people on LinkedIn and do a podcast. Like
Mm,
just that, all of that is networking.
mm,
And you never quite know like who is useful quotes useful to you. Should be doing the networking because it's good on its own terms,
Mm,
because the conversation will be interesting, because you might learn
100%.
something, right? Because you don't know who else you'll meet when you get there.
Mm,
But most importantly is you really don't know who's going to be useful to you. And very often people want to get to the middle of the network where all the VIPs are and the people with the titles and the letters after their name and the big jobs and the right, all this, the institutions. Oftentimes the useful people are on the edge of the network, and what's helpful is that they can move between two different networks, right? And so they have credibility from one group to another group. Because if you get to like the head of the art world in London or some important political figure in Washington, D.C. or whatever, they don't care about you. What do you have to offer? What are you going to say to them? Give me a break. But if you can find someone who has the respect of that community and who knows what they're doing and can like weave their way through, that's very useful. And the story of Grandma Moses in the book illustrates that very well. The second thing I would say is like get busy. And this again sounds like basic self-help BS advice, but truly, the more you do, the more opportunities you open up. And this will just sound like hooey spiritualist self-help stuff, but it's like this: if you wait at the bus stop for 10 minutes versus 1 hour, when are you going to see more buses? Okay, if you wait for 10 minutes, you might not get any buses. Now, I'm not saying go and just hang around, but like it's an example, it's an illustration of the fact that if you do more things come along. And truly, what distinguishes people when in terms of how lucky they are is whether they're seeing the opportunities in front of them, like whether they're actually on the lookout and taking those opportunities. Um, and this happens again and again and again. The more energetic people, the busier people, they are seeing more opportunities. So they have more networking opportunities. So they come across more quote unquote good luck. But I think once you've seen that they're actually very busy and they're doing stuff and they're going out and making it happen, it's less like good luck and more like you kept looking until you found it. Right? So those are the two like big, broad pieces of advice that I think everyone could do more. I
mm,
struggle to imagine anyone genuinely is like maxed out on these things.
mhm.
Um, throw a party, message someone that on Twitter or something. Like all of these little things add up.
Mm.
Leave comments on a blog. I don't know. Just be out there.
What opportunities has writing this book given you?
Well, I get to do a lot of talks and podcasts. And
Okay.
when I'm
Yes.
doing that, I get like I just did one recently where I went to the guy's house and there were like 30 people there and I give a little talk to them. And then I get to meet some of those people.
Mm,
And that's great for me. I like
mhm,
that.
mhm.
Get to
There's
meet a lot of different people.
I don't know if you've heard of a guy in the kind of self-help business area called Daniel Priestley. He's a guy that recommends, if you have a level of expertise or an interest, you should write a book, and that book is kind of like is like your gateway. It's the gift that you give to
Mm-hmm.
people. It's your form of networking. That the example you gave of you know telling people exactly what you're doing. If you've got a
Yeah.
book, you give it to that person.
I think that's
Um,
great. But I would say like it can be a long form blog post.
yes, it doesn't need to
It
be.
doesn't
Yeah,
need to be a book.
yes, yeah,
I've seen
yeah.
people do incredibly well with like one 3,000 word blog post,
Hmm.
and it opens up a lot for them.
Yeah. Okay. What is the what is the next project? Because for me, like the whole kind of second act area feels like a place that you could potentially get into consultancy and chat to people about how to chat to people about how to kind of find their lane in life. Obviously, from your facial expression, that's not something that you want to do. But do you just want to be the obviously the facial expression kind of is a telltale. You don't just want to be the second act guy for the rest of your life, right? You don't want to kind of step into that lane.
What I don't want to be a consultant. I've done
Okay.
that. It's boring.
Okay.
Like it wasn't boring, but I don't want to. I'm not going back to like a full time
Mm.
thing of that. Um, but what I am really is just a writer, and I still write about talent. I just wrote about patronage for the Financial Times and why we think of patronage as a bad thing, but it can actually be quite effective and quite efficient. So I still write about these areas, and I still talk to people about late bloomers, but I've got other things I want to do. And I'm not going to just stay with this one topic, but I'm not giving it up either. I blog about it sometimes.
When you say patronage, you mean like supporting an artist or
So
supporting a creative financially, or
that's
because
one
that's
kind of
another element of late blooming, right? Is like
it is. Oh,
you could
100%.
you know come
That's
across
one
lots of
kind of
hurdles.
patronage, but there's also the question of like nepo babies.
Okay, yeah, yeah,
Or like I don't know anything about your career, but presumably at some point a friend has recommended you apply for a job, or you've applied because a friend has said, I know this guy, like tell HR. That's
yes,
a kind
yes.
of patronage, right?
Okay, I see. Yeah.
Anything where someone does you a favor, recommends you. In the bad old days, people would just give their friends jobs, right?
Mm,
Now, economists have pretty good data showing that if you just like give your friends jobs, it does not work very well.
mm,
And if when politicians just appoint their friends like their supporters to cabinet positions, we've all seen this. It doesn't go
yeah.
well. People should get their positions based on merit, based on their record and abilities, right? Fairness, open, transparent, not on this like the Duke of Humdydum gave Lord Fiddlededee's second son's cousin a job in the office of what, like, that's a terrible system. We have
Mm,
this good system. But there are several papers and really quite good studies showing that actually that kind of patronage can be very meritocratic and very efficient and can lead to better results. So long as there is an open, transparent, meritocratic process, patronage actually gives you candidates who perform better. So there's a good study. It's about drivers, engineers, and one other job category. Quite like diverse jobs. Oh, call center people, I think. And it showed that if the person was recommended, like someone who already works there says, I know someone who would be good at this job, dear HR, please hire them, whatever. That person outperforms compared to someone who just like applies for the job in the normal way. And this happened, there's a very good study of this happening in the British Navy during the Napoleonic Wars. If you had an uncle in the Admiralty who got you a position, you sank more ships and you stole more gold. And so this comes up again and again. Academic journals, there's some interesting stuff on this. And the reason is that an open, transparent, meritocratic process is great. It stops you hiring like your idiot nephew who actually will screw things up or whatever. But it's like 90% of the information you need. There's just 10% on top of that, which is like, do they have the personality traits? Right? So once you've done the meritocratic, passed your admiralty exam, we know you can sail a ship and you know all the rules and whatever. But if you're going to be a really good Navy captain, we need you to have some fire in your belly. We need you to like really, really want to sink some French ships, right? And the difference between a really good captain and a not very good captain is like, we're not putting the anchor down until we get them. Meritocracy and exams and all this can't really find, like, that's very hard to find. Whereas, like, the uncle in the Admiralty can be like, I've got these two nephews. This guy's an idiot. The other one you should hire. And so he can give you the last bit of information. The guy who recommended you for your job, he's saying, like, whatever, it may not be determination, whatever the personal quality, like if you're a driver, big, heavy vehicles and so forth, we really need you to be able to keep your cool. Right, you're backing this damn thing up. It's as big as 12 houses, and there's no space, and people are watching you, and it's hot, and some idiot is honking, and like there's a kid screaming, and we just need you to be like, whatever, man, I'm backing it. I don't care. None of it, right? it's very like someone says, no, no, I've worked with this guy. He could back up a truck in the ninth circle of hell. Like he's fine. We can't test for that. That's really good information, right? So these personal qualities, sometimes nepotism, patronage, whatever you want to call it, if it is coupled with very strong meritocracy, kind
Mm,
of is the best way we have to work out
mm.
who's got what it takes.
I guess like there's a reputational aspect in there as well. It's like if you put somebody forward and they're terrible, that reflects on you,
Of course,
and so
of course.
you've effectively got a filter there. You've got
Well, and
a
they
filtration process.
for that they have to structure the incentives properly.
Mm,
If we hire the guy and he or she is still there after 6 months and performing at a whatever level, and
mm.
then you get your money.
Nice. Yeah.
Whereas if
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
just pay you for names like that,
Yeah.
yeah, that's trouble.
Okay. So you've kind of like hinted at it there, but what is it that companies are missing out from not dipping into the pool of older people? What things kind of like stand out in your experience?
I think there's a lot of expertise and knowledge that could be made more use of
Mhm.
after, well, actually, even before the pandemic. Certainly, the labour market data in Britain was showing a lot of people over the age of 50, 55 out of work.
Mm,
Not necessarily unemployed, maybe economically inactive, maybe they were going for early retirement or some kind of thing like that. But I felt like there was a lot of talent on the bench,
mm,
and that companies weren't as eager to get to those people as they were to get to younger
mm,
younger talent. And some people say there are economic reasons for this because that person's only going to do another 5 or 10 years in the workforce and so forth. But I don't think that's true because a lot of the younger people you hire will stay with you for 5 or 10 years.
mm.
Um, I don't quite know what the problem is. I'm sure there's ageism, and I think I've seen ageism in practice and so forth. But I think probably it's more cultural than anything. Um, but I think there's a lot of expertise. One really interesting thing that happened was that a lot of these 55-year-old men were dropping out of the workforce, and I think it was those home improvement stores like B&Q and Homebase. They started hiring a lot of these guys because they realized that, like, oh, they'd been whatever, IT, law, like all this, they'd been in all different jobs, but they realized that like this whole generation of men just knows they know all the tools, right? So some of these guys were like they'd be in B&Q just as a customer, and they'd be like, no, you don't need that screwdriver. Let me show you what screwdriver you need. They could do the job anyway. And I think there's a lot of that kind of thing out there, right? Where people don't, it's difficult to know what this person could also be good at. I will never forget, I once worked with a distillery company, and they realized that the guy who was like literally the guy who carried the barrels around could actually set up the computer network and the Wi-Fi and all the systems for them, and he did all that. And they had no idea that he was just a barrel guy, right?
Mm. That reminds me of I forget that, well, there's a few of them on YouTube now. There's a few kind of like older gentlemen that are killing it in the realms of DIY.
Mm,
And it feels like they've built up years of experience
that's
of
it.
doing things, and now they've set up YouTube channels. They're doing less and less actual manual labor, but more and more kind of demonstrating how to do things, and that's built up from years and years of experience.
Exactly. So
um
I think there's a lot of this where you can make different use of your people,
yeah.
but they still have that knowledge,
Yeah.
and it's valuable.
Mm. And there's also the emotional intelligence, which is something that I think is shown to kind of like improve with age. Maybe kind of memory and recall is kind of declines as you get older, but things like emotional intelligence
Yeah,
potentially increase.
I just said the two best periods in my career for like output
Mm,
was when I was like mid 20s, and I had two different bosses who were in their 50s. I worked with one and then the other. And it was this great combination because they knew everything. They'd done everything twice already. They knew, they'd been around, they'd done the whole thing. Whereas I was like, let's rip it down. Let's burn it down. Let's do something else. We're going to make this whole thing. It'll only cost $1 million. And they were like, okay, there's like three good things in there. And between us, we had everything we needed to do like exciting work that was also practical and like, right? And those two partnerships just worked really well. And I think there's opportunity for more of that. Sometimes what people say is, "Oh, you see, we needed this new young talent," and I'd be like, "Well, no, we needed the partnership of the experienced and the new, right? It's between them where you're getting these good executions, and this is more obvious in some sectors than others. It's pretty obvious in education that a brilliant student at university needs a great professor, right? And I think it should be a bit more obvious to us in work sometimes as well in the office.
The other thing I wanted to mention to you, kind of on similar lines, is David Epstein's book Range.
Yeah, good book.
So for me, that also kind of offers a tip for the late bloomer. Very similar to the inefficient preparation, is that you're building up experiences from different domains, and at some point those different domains align in some sort of a Venn diagram, and that middle bit is the lane that you
Yes.
should be choosing as a late bloomer. Um, I mean, again, to pull you back to this idea of the 10 step, kind of outline for late blooming. What what signs, if any, do you think people should look out for, um, in terms of where they should go or what skills they should, kind of delve into that could potentially give them the late bloom opportunity?
I would say two things. I think you probably already know. You need
Mm.
to think about your own history and what you've done and what you're good at and what you've enjoyed. But you probably already know. It may not be so obvious how to apply that, but you already know what you are. If you truly, truly don't know, like if you really you just can't work it out at all, do more sampling. Join a choir, learn to cook, take a physics class. I don't know, like whatever it is that is the maybes, or things where you're like not even a maybe, but I'm curious. Do it in small ways. YouTube videos are a good start. One class on a Saturday. I don't know what it is, like some kind of dip your toe in the water opportunity. Um, but probably you already know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's it also lends itself to the idea in business. You may have a superb idea, but the idea doesn't kind of bloom or come into existence unless you find the right route. So you can have a love of, like, for example, one of the back and forths that I have is fitness. I've always loved fitness,
Mm-hmm.
but my biggest issue is, for me, I think fitness comes easy, and the idea of teaching somebody or personal training feels like a chore, because if I'm dealing with somebody who it doesn't come naturally to, it would
Exactly.
cause a bit of friction and tension, and the very thing that I love becomes, something that I dislike. Um, in fact, I've got another interview with a guy who used to be a personal trainer,
Mm-hmm.
and he has now kind of given up personal training and gone into the corporate world, into marketing, which is kind of tends to be the other way around. You have a corporate
Yeah,
career and then you go into personal training, but he's
yeah,
done the complete opposite. And I think the underlying reason is he had a passion, and that passion doesn't lend itself to a career. It lends itself to something
yeah.
you do to make you feel
Well,
alive, and
maybe.
Mm.
I think it varies. My work is I do my hobby, for my
Hmm.
work. Works great for me. I don't have
Mm,
a problem with it at all.
mm,
Um, I think it varies. This is what I mean about advice. I just think it varies so much by the
yeah,
person,
yeah.
and you should go with what works.
Mm. There are no easy answers.
There are
There are
no
no
easy
easy
answers,
answers.
and also people will tell you graphs and averages and data, and like they won't tell you what the variation is on that. And it's like, I
Mm,
don't know if you're on the line. Maybe you're not on the line.
mm,
Like, work it out.
mhm, mhm.
All of this, by the way, listeners can probably already tell, is just a variation of get busy.
Mm.
Do
Test and
do stuff.
experiment
Yeah,
and yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Stop making
yeah.
lists. Get on with something.
Yes, yeah. Stop listening to too many podcasts, perhaps as well.
No podcasts, no journaling, no bullet points. Just do
Just do
something.
it.
Just do
Yeah,
something.
yeah. Okay. Henry, this has been brilliant. Is there anything else that you'd want to kind of share with the audience? Any other 10-step tips or, or tips that you can
Well,
throw out there? Or
I'll tell you one more thing.
mm,
Late bloomers often exhibit a pattern in their lives where early on they're very exploratory. They're doing different things, following their interests. Maybe they have several different jobs, different industries, right? All over. Maybe they just have bad luck, but they're exploring and they're doing different things. At some point, they switch into the exploit mode, and it's like something from the exploratory phase. They're going to take that and they're going to go and do it, and they're going to make something out of it, and they're in delivery mode now, right? And stuff's going to happen. Making that switch is crucial. If you're in politics, you might have to do that because, like, someone loses an election with no notice, or someone dies in office, or like the wheel turns and like, okay, off we go. If if you're in like the arts, maybe you're just going to have to make that happen yourself. If you if you like are in academia and you need to switch to corporate life, maybe more networking is required. Like, how you make the switch is going to be different for people, but that is the crucial thing, I think. And a lot of people, they keep exploring and exploring and exploring and exploring, and it's like, this won't happen on its own.
mm,
You need to that needs to come to an end. Obviously you keep doing some exploring, but it needs to come to an end, and you need to like go and deliver.
okay, brilliant. Actually, before we finish, could you give us? I should have said this earlier on. Could you give us your definition of what a late bloomer is?
Someone who flourishes after the point when no one else expects them to. No number, no age, there's no line somewhere in your life. It's just Malcolm X, he's a late bloomer in his early 20s. Grandma Moses is a late bloomer when she's like 70. Okay? It happens all different ages for all different people.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Thanks, mate. The other thing I wanted to thank you for is you, in your writing, you've made me appreciate Margaret Thatcher in a completely different
Oh,
way. I
good.
didn't, I can't say that I can't say I was a too big a fan, but yeah, having read your, your biography of her and what she went through, I appreciate her slightly more.
I think it's about time we talk about Margaret Thatcher without the politics.
Yes, yes. It's a
Um,
difficult thing to divorce politics from, but yeah, no, 100% there are lessons there to be learned from her life. And
yeah,
yeah, no, I
I'm glad
appreciate the
because
way you put it
she
together.
is a very impressive person. Whatever
Yeah.
you think of what happened, she's a very impressive person.
Mm, mm. All right. Nice one.
Good. I'm pleased about that.
Henry, thank you so much.
Thank
Is
you.
there, the usual end question with the podcast is, how can people kind of come across your work? How can they link up
Substack.
with you?
It's all Substack.
Yeah.
Go to the Common Reader on Substack. That's me. That's everything.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thanks again, mate. And yeah, this has been brilliant. I've enjoyed the chat, and I'm glad we could do it.